Turandot. Chapter 1. The Ice Princess. My life has been full of adventure. Now that I am very old, telling stories is all I can do. My name is Calaf. I was born the Prince of Tartary. After a very long and terrible war, my father, King Timur, and I were forced to escape from my country. I didn't know what happened to my father, but now I was in Peking. I would never forget the evening I arrived in this great city. Many people had gathered in the square in front of the imperial palace. It was really amazing. There must have been thousands of people there. I thought that something very exciting was to occur, so I asked, "What's happening?" One person in the crowd replied, "A man will be killed soon. He had come to try to marry Princess Turandot. He had to solve the princess's riddles first before he could marry her, but he failed. Now they will cut off his head." "Who is Princess Turandot?" I asked. "She is the emperor's daughter," said a woman standing next to me. "She is extremely beautiful. So many princes come from different countries to marry her. But she doesn't want to marry any of them. She is a cold woman. Some say that her heart is made from stone. To make it difficult for any man to marry her, she has said that she will only marry the man who can solve the 3 riddles she gives them. If they fail, well, you can see what we are waiting for." Suddenly, a man dressed in palace robes appeared. He called out, "The Prince of Persia has failed to answer the princess's riddles. He will die when the moon appears this evening." As I was listening to this, there was a loud sound behind me. I turned around and saw an old man lying on the ground. A woman yelled out, "Look! They just threw the poor blind man on the ground." I rushed over and helped the man to his feet. I was shocked. The old man was my own father, King Timur. "Father," I cried out, "you are here in Peking. I have been looking for you everywhere." I looked up and saw another person standing by. It was Liu. She was a very faithful servant and friend to my father. "Liu, you are here too." "She has been wonderful," said my father. "She has been my eyes ever since I couldn't see, and has given me so much help. If she had not been with me, I would have been dead." Liu was looking down at her feet. "Liu, I'm most grateful to you for looking after my father. You didn't have to do this. Why have you given so much to me and my family?" I asked her. "A long time ago in the palace, you used to smile at me," she said, but her words were interrupted by a loud gong. Many men entered the square. They carried a large stone to the middle of the square. The stone was for the executioner to sharpen his axe on. "Cut off his head when the moon appears," people shouted. I was quite shocked by the people. It seemed they enjoyed watching people die. These people are like animals, I thought. How can this Princess Turandot kill so many men? She really is a cold-hearted woman. Everyone continued calling for the death of the poor man, but they became very quiet when the princess appeared. The princess was wearing a long white robe. From a distance, it looked like ice. She had beautiful black hair, which was so long that it almost reached the floor. Her face was perfect, and her lips were red like roses. She opened those beautiful lips and ordered, "Guards, take him away to cut off his head." The poor prince was dragged away to his death. It was such a terrible night, but I could not think of the poor man anymore. It was like a spell had been cast on me. All I could think of was the princess. I couldn't take my eyes off of her. I was filled with desire and love for her. For a moment, my heart even stopped beating. Then I did something which would change my life forever. I said in a very loud voice, "I have come here to make the princess my bride. I will solve her riddles and she will marry me." "No, no, they will cut your head off. I can't bear to think of that," Liu cried. "This means I will lose you again. Please don't do this," Father begged me. But I didn't listen to them. I walked toward a very large gong in the square. Anyone who wanted to marry the princess had to hit the gong 3 times. As I walked up to the gong, 3 men raced in front of me and stopped me. One said, "I am Ping, the Grand Chancellor." The second said, "I am Peng, the chief cook." The third said, "I am Pang, the marshal."
Do not do this,
they all cried out. Pang said,
"Look in the sky. Can't you see the ghosts of the dead flying around this great city? They are the men who died for the princess's love."
Ping said,
"There are so many pretty women. Go and find another pretty girl."
I just said no and walked past them. I struck the gong 3 times. The whole crowd watched me hit the gong, and then I could hear them whisper, "He will never solve the riddles." The 3 men were also talking among themselves. "There have already been 13 deaths this year. This city is filled with blood." Even though everyone thought I would die, I would not change my mind. I wanted to marry the princess. Soon, 2 guards came out and took me inside the palace. After a few moments, a group of wise men walked in with large documents. I guessed they contained the princess's riddles. After the wise men came some other men. They were carrying red and white lanterns. Red was for a wedding and white was for a funeral. Finally, the emperor appeared. He did not look like a happy man. He looked at me and said, "Please do not do this. Don't try to answer my daughter's riddles. You can leave now before she comes." "No," I replied. "I will try to answer." The emperor asked me twice more, and I answered each time, "Let me try." Chapter 2. 3 Riddles. A few moments later, the princess appeared. She was very beautiful and elegant. She stood like a tall white candle. She started to speak, and I felt my heart leap out from my chest. "I am taking revenge for the death of my ancestor, Princess Lu Ling. 1,000 years ago, a foreign king came to her in this place, ravished and murdered her. To honor her memory, I have vowed to never allow any man to touch me. There are 3 riddles for you, but only 1 death," she said. I replied, "There are 3 riddles, but only 1 life." She began to ask me the first riddle. "What is the phantom born every night that dies in the dawn but lives in the hearts of humans?" I thought carefully about the question and answered, "Hope." She looked very uncomfortable after I answered, but she continued to ask the second riddle. "What warms like a fire, boils in a fever, becomes cold in death, but glows like a sunset and flies into passion in victory?" Once more, I thought carefully about the question and answered, blood. Now Turandot looked at me in anger. Her eyes looked as cold as ice. She asked the final question. What is the ice that sets you on fire? What consumes you and yet freezes even harder? The crowd in the square stood silent and listened. This time I thought even longer about the question. Turandot, I said at last. Finally, I said, Turandot, you are like ice, but my passion for you burns inside me. You are what consumes my thoughts and feelings. The wise men standing in the square in that magnificent palace shook their heads in amazement. I had answered the 3 riddles correctly. Turandot looked stunned for a few moments. Then she threw herself at her father's feet and begged, "Please do not make me marry him. Please, father." But her father replied, "He has answered all the questions correctly. We promised that whoever answers the questions correctly will marry you. You must." Turandot now stood and turned to look at me. "Do you really want a wife who marries you unwillingly?" she asked. "No, I do not," I replied. "So if you can find out my name before dawn tomorrow, I will not force you to marry me, and I will die happily at your hands." This pleased Turandot very much. She smiled in her own evil way and said, "Wonderful. No one will sleep tonight until I learn your name. Tomorrow you will lose your head. I will give a reward to the person who finds out your name." That night, no one in the city could sleep. I waited in the palace garden for the sun to rise. Ping, Pong, and Pang came to see me. Again they begged,
The princess will find out your name. Just please leave in peace before she kills you.
Suddenly, I heard a noise inside the courtyard. I rushed in to see some guards dragging my father and Liu into the courtyard. One of the guards said, "These people spoke to him yesterday. They know who he is." I shouted out, "No, they don't. Until yesterday, they were complete strangers to me." As soon as Turandot arrived, the guards started beating my father. Liu cried out, "Please do not hurt him. He is only an old man. Only I can tell you what you want to know." I tried to run to Liu to stop her from speaking, but some guards stopped me. Turandot ordered, "Take her and torture her until she tells you his name." "I will never tell you," Liu screamed. "I will die before I tell you his name." I was so stunned by Liu's devotion to my father and myself, and even Turandot asked her, "Why do you care so much about him? Why are you so willing to sacrifice yourself for this man?" Liu answered, "Love gives me courage. Your heart is made of ice, but it will be warmed by the love he can give." Liu jumped forward and grabbed one of the guard's daggers and stabbed herself in the heart. No one could have stopped Liu because it all happened so quickly. She fell to the ground in front of my feet and died. I felt such emotion for poor Liu. She had given her life to save mine. I became very angry now. I turned to Turandot and said, "You are the princess of death. Wherever you go, death follows you." Turandot looked at me and said, "No, I am the daughter of heaven, and my spirit flies in the heavens far above yours. Perhaps your spirit may, but you are on this earth with me, so you are no better than the rest of us." I walked toward her and tore her veil away. I took her in my arms and placed my lips on hers. At first she struggled like a wild animal, but the warmth of my kiss finally reached her frozen heart. She broke down into tears. "The love in my kiss has warmed your heart. You will no longer be the ice princess. I told her. As soon as I saw you, I knew that you would make my life difficult, the princess said. Go. I do not want to know your name. It can stay a mystery. I replied, I am the victor now, and I do not care whether I live or die. My name is Calaf, Prince of Tartary. Later, after the sun had risen, the king sat on his throne. Turandot and I were standing together in front of him. The emperor spoke to Turandot first. Turandot, have you discovered the name of this man? Yes, I have, father. His name is Love, she replied. Then she smiled in a way no one had ever seen before. The smile was not of hate or evil, but of love. Ping, Pong, and Pang nodded approvingly, and the emperor looked happy. Turandot became my wife, and we have lived very happily for many years. It is wonderful to grow old with the person you love.